Good morning and welcome to StudyIQ. I am Prashant Mavani. I hope you all are doing good, my dear friends. Today is 20th January 2020. Day is Monday. And the first article that we are going to go through is Bull and Gore. This one is about Jellico. Jellico belongs to this state of Tamil Nadu. But before we crack on, can I introduce all of you to our pen drive and tablet courses? They are designed by the best faculties of our nation. With the help of our pen drive and tablet courses, there are thousands of students out there who have cracked various different competitive exams. You can purchase them from StudyIQ.com. If you have any question, queries, doubts regarding it, you can give us a call on the numbers that you can see on your screen. To download the PDF of today's lecture, visit my FB page. This is my Telegram channel. Please make sure that you share this lecture with other students. Don't forget to hit the like button, and of course, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. So on your screen, you have a picture of this sports called Jellico. I'm sure many of you have watched this film called Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara. It's a Hindi film. And in this film, we see the last portion is about a sport of Spain. It looks something like this Jellico. A bit different, of course, but you have bulls and then you have people as well. And it's basically a risky, very, very risky sports. And every year in Jellico, we find so many people, right? They lose their lives. There are so many people out there who get severely injured forever because the brute strength of this animal called bull. Now, this sport is celebrated in Tamil Nadu, and a few years ago when I was doing research on this particular topic, the reason I was doing research is because back in 2016 and early 2017, this sport, Jellico was in news because a case was going on in Supreme Court. So at that point of time, when I was doing research, I came across a very interesting fact that some 1500 or 2000 years ago, there was a painting, basically. A painting was discovered that is considered like it's around somewhere around 1500, or it's a bit older than that. And this painting that was found from one of the cave of Tamil Nadu, it was basically displaying this sport of Jellico that was played since time immemorial. So it has always been part of this Tamil culture. It is a symbol of Tamil culture. It is a display of valor, and you'll be quite amused to know this thing that so many girls, right, they go to watch this Jellico and they find their grooms from here. So I'm sure you'll be aware about this thing, that bravery and courage is something that is very attractive across the cultures, right? So this is a thing as well. It is part of Pongal season, and the government of Tamil Nadu promotes this particular sport as a tourist attraction as well. Now, courts are not happy with some courts are not happy with this sport called Jellico because they have this in courts. We find this argument that this sport is basically a cruelty on bulls, grave violation of animal rights, and it's basically about promoting cruelty on animals and things like that. So courts, a particular court has banned this sport as well, but later on it was restored by the Tamil Nadu government by passing a special law or a bill from the Legislative Assembly of Tamil Nadu. Now, since this passage of this bill, we have seen that regulations have tightened. It has improved as well from time to time, and what we see nowadays is that without official permission and without medical supervision, we don't find this particular sport, in any remote corner of Tamil Nadu. So things have improved as far as official permission and medical supervision is concerned. But still, there are issues, like there are so many people who die every year because of this Jellico. So what we can do is we can introduce some protective gears. We can make some protective gears mandatory, like wearing an armor, or a body armor, or a helmet, something like that. But still, remember, right, sport, when it comes to sport, every sport has an element of the danger of injury. Cricket, football, so many others, right? So it has always been part of this taking risks, and taking risk of injury has always attracted so many people towards a sport, and it's going to be there. And the other thing is, as I told you, this is one of the main reason why I mentioned these two incidents, or these two facts that you don't find in this editorial, but these are the facts. The one is about this marriage thing that I told you, that so many girls out there, they go to see their future grooms. They look at those boys who are taking risks, and it is believed that a person who can take this sort of risks can do anything for the family. So this is one thing. And the second thing is about those caves where we found this painting. So it has always been there as a part of, you can say, tradition and culture of Tamil Nadu. So popular sentiments are with this particular sport, then political patronage as well. There is no political party that will take risk of going against this sentiments of people with Jellico. And then you have this cultural instincts to preserve practices. And there is one more argument about protecting the native breeds of these animals. So basically that's everything about this bull and gore. Now the second one is a needless fracas. This is interesting one. It's about governors versus state governments. It's about constitution. It's about the practical implementation of things that are written in constitution. The reason why we find this particular topic in news or part of current affairs is because we have two important players. One is Kerala's governor, Arif Mohammad Khan, and the second one is West Bengal's Governor Jagdeep Dhankar. Now, these two gentlemen were in news because of their statements. Now, Mr. Khan has said that it was his duty to defend the laws made by the centre, but the problem is there is nothing discernible precedent as such, or we don't find any written evidence or any case, a case on this clash between governors versus state governments, and this is something that we find quite often in our country. And one of the main reason is the appointment and how they are appointed and why governors are appointed. The more important thing is why and how. I'll give you one example. If you were following current affairs back in 2014 and 2014 predominantly, then you'd be aware about this thing that at that point of time UPA Manmohan Singh was the Prime Minister, and after that we saw NDA government coming in. NDA, like Narendra Modi, was elected as Prime Minister, or his party NDA group was elected, and they won the election, and finally Narendra Modi became the PM. So the first thing that a central government or a new regime will do is change the pawns or change these governors. And generally speaking, what happens is that you will make governors, or those people will be made governors who have served for the party, right? And now it's a time, like now they are quite senior, so it's a way of saying thank you very much for your services throughout your life. Now you can enjoy this post of a governor, right? The things that I'm sharing with you guys, right? It's not that you find anywhere written. This is how things are working. So basically, they are political agents of a ruling party that is ruling at the center. And president is the person who appoints it, because a president has to take and as well as follow advices that are coming from the Prime Minister and Council of Ministers. It's the duty of president to follow that particular advice or advices. Now, second important point that has been said by Mr. Khan is that this point is totally wrong, but this one is right, that his duty is, or his office is not a rubber stamp. Generally we see that, or many times we talk as well, that governor's duty or president's duty is it's more like a rubber stamp. They have to do what the government tells them to do, but that's not always right. In constitution, it's already said as well that there are occasions where a governor has to use his or her power of discretion. They have to use their own logic or rationality. Like say, for example, when you don't have a clear majority, or when you don't have after election, if you don't have a proper, you can say, majority, or any one particular party has not got extra seats or maximum seats, then when you have this sort of tricky situation, a governor will take a call. He or she will use his or her logic and their his or her you can say research as well as sources. If he or she finds that this particular political party is capable of forming a coalition government, then governor will invite that particular political party and leaders. So constitution envisages the execution of popular will through an elected government. When these two posts, chief minister, or what sort of state governments, or how should we operate our states, when this thing was discussed at that point of time, it was said that we should have an elected government like chief minister, and then we will have a governor that will be elected as well. But finally it was decided that once you have one chief minister who is elected, then we don't need a governor that is elected, right? And then it will create a sort of clash. Just imagine that you have a governor who is from Congress, and then you have an elected government that is from BJP. Let's just forget that central government will appoint governors. Just imagine that in a state, the people of that particular state will decide who will be the governor and chief ministers. Then if you have these two things, right, if you have this clash, then it will create problem, right? So and there is no practicality as well. You already have an elected chief minister, then why you need elected governor? So it was finally decided that president will elect. Now one more thing that we have to understand is that we have so many states in our country. They have their own unique culture, they have their own problems, they have their own strengths. So basically our country is vast as well as diverse, and a glue that keeps all these various different states, cultures, everything together is our central government. And this is one of the main reasons, like central government has got some extra power, I would say, when it comes to our nation as a country. When we think, right, the constitution is bit tilted towards our center in appointments, in running the country, and this is necessary as well. And when it comes to appointment of governors, right, this power are bestowed on central government. And one of the main reasons is to make sure that the whole nation is heading towards one national goal. Integrity of our nation and other things are, of course, part of it. Now, a governor is expected to act as an eye and an ear of central government, but that does not mean that it should be imperial. It should not be against. It should not be anti-constitutional or unconstitutional. The governor's constitutional role has been debated and interpreted through several cases. We have seen so many sagacious occupants, or we have seen so many good governors, right? They have delivered good governance, and they have created a sort of benchmark, they have created landmarks, and there are few governors, right, they have merely act as an agents of central government or ruling party at center. And this is not fair for the post of governor. So what we need is basically, we need those sort of governors who are, of course, they are going to be elected. There will be a bit of political touch, but we have some good examples as well. Like I'll give you one example of Pranab Mukherjee and the relationship between Pranab Mukherjee and Narendra Modi. Narendra Modi coming from BJP, Pranab Mukherjee from Congress. Pranab Mukherjee was president of our country, and then Narendra Modi got elected as Prime Minister. But never ever there was any sort of issue between these two individuals, right? They were coming from different ideologies, but once this Pranab Mukherjee, when he became this president, right? Once you become a president or vice president, you have to be neutral. And we are fortunate enough that in our country, right, majority of our presidents and vice presidents, formers, right, they were quite neutral most of the time, and generally speaking, right, you may find few cases, but if you look at it, big picture is that majority of them and most of the time they have been neutral. And that is very good thing, because these people, right, the senior people, they have created this benchmark. They have showed us the path that if you are appointed to a constitutional post, then you have to be neutral. Maybe coming from any political party or your personal ideology, could be anything, but when you are at this post, you have to go with the constitution, right? So they have displayed this thing, and we expect the same thing from our governors as well. That even though if they are appointed by central government, they are a constitutional, they are a very important part of our constitution, and this post of governor is a constitutional post, so they have to, you can say, basically execute their duties in such a way that is in line with constitution, and it should not be imperial, right? So I hope things are clear as far as this needless fracas is concerned. Now let's talk about equity's weak pulse and commodified medicine. It all started with the Prime Minister's recent comment on pharma industry. I'm sure you'd be aware about this thing, that there are so many pharma industries. They use various different tools to bribe doctors. They provide a share in the sales of medicines. The more medicine you can sell or prescribe, the bigger your incentives will be. Your families do get exotic, means everything is covered for this exotic holidays. So we find this sort of bribes are given by pharmaceutical companies, and then doctors will prescribe you more and more medicines. Now it's quite interesting to know that back in 1924, under this Madras presidency, there was this subsidized rural medical relief scheme. How it used to work is that if a private doctor settles down in a village area, then he or she will be given an annual subsidy. So it was like, giving extra perks to that particular doctor. And with the help of this subsidized rural medical relief scheme, the government was able to take down two birds with one arrow. So a doctor will, stay in village area. He or she will cater to this grassroots level people. So it will increase this accessibility of healthcare services in rural area, and government will not have to spend that much money, right, in a very economical way. Government was expanding at that point of time. British government or British Raj was expanding healthcare access in rural areas. Then in 30s we saw this economic depression, and because of this thing, this whole scheme came to a complete halt or a standstill. Then we had this Honorary Medical Scheme, HMS, initially planned to assist full-time permanent medical officers in government hospitals. But later on what happened is that these honoraries, they started taking over from these permanent doctors. So and government found that this is a bit more economical in a way. So more and more honoraries were replacing permanent doctors, and there came a point where full-time permanent positions were halted, and only in few cases they were appointed. Most of the time things were done by this HMS or under this HMS. So two things if we can deduce from these two examples is that the first one is basically that economic downturn. In the first example, we saw that because of a little bit of economic downturn, and we saw this whole medical scheme was destroyed. And the second thing is that if we take it very lightly, if there is no regulation of government, I would write here regulation. The government will not keep an eye, and if it will not control this medical field, then we find that more and more private players will start exploiting the situation in the ground. Back in 1938, only 23% of doctors were in public sector. At that point of time as well, more and more were in private sector. But at that point of time, we used to have this sort of support of government. But back in 1950, I'll give you one more example, then we'll talk about today's scenario, right? Back in 1950, there were 1,400 enterprises, private hospitals. In 2010-11, we have more than 10 lakh hospitals in our country. I'm sure you'd be aware about this thing in your city area. If you are living in a city or a town, you would be having one government hospital, and rest of them, everything is private hospitals, big hospitals and private hospitals. It's a sort of opportunity for doctors. They can have this, great, professional liberty, less restrictions, and higher source of income, as we all know. After liberalization, after 1991, we saw this lucrative expansion of this lucrative tertiary care. Now we have in city area, we have so many options of this multi-speciality hospitals making millions and millions of dollars or rupees every year. And the sad thing is that I must clarify my point here. The first thing is that it's not that each and every doctor is out there to exploit patients. We have to understand this thing. There are so many doctors out there. They are joining this profession because they truly believe that by helping someone, by ensuring health of other people, of their patient, right, that is their duty. So they are spreading happiness, no doubt, and of course they are making money too, right? And there is nothing wrong with making money. If your business is legitimate, then there's nothing wrong with it. But the problem now is, and we have to accept this thing as well, that in today's circles, right, a social circle, a doctor is considered successful, or that doctor is considered successful who is having who is owner of a very big hospital, doing multiple operations per day, making crores every year. But that is very sad thing, because our whole focus is more nowadays on economical success rather than clinical excellence and empathy. Every year in our country, roughly 6 crore families, right, they have to sell their properties, they have to sell their hard-earned money or their assets just to pay their medical bills. So it's very difficult for any family. Even today, whatever money you have earned, everything can go away from you in a minute if you have a big serious medical issue. Even though we have insurance industry, but awareness is not that much, and it's not that easy as well. There are many barriers too, like people once you have crossed the 70, you don't have that thing. It's expensive as well. So there are various barriers as well. So in this era, we have to understand, and doctors as well, and the society, I would say, we have to understand that a big doctor, the definition should be a person who is humble, who is patient friendly, who is working for from more proactive side, like how we can avoid diseases, and of course with minimum, I would say, minimum expense, right? If operation is not required, if you can solve a particular problem with the help of medicine, then that should be the first choice rather than going for an operation. So I'm sure you might have heard about this sort of cases in today's world. So we need the definition of, or the whole our perspective, we need to change it, right, when it comes to good doctors. I'll give you one example of NHS, that is National Health Service of United Kingdom. How it works is that you have to, if you are working in UK, then you have to have this national insurance. It's not a sort of insurance cover for your medicine. It's basically just like Aadhaar, something like Aadhaar. Not exactly like Aadhaar, but you need to have one number, unique number. You can get it from government body. You go there, you get your national insurance number, and once you have it, then you have to attach this thing with your business or with your job. You have to give this number to your employer. So this number will stay with you forever, and basically, let's say if you are earning £1,000, then you have to pay £70 or something less than that. I'm not sure about the exact figure, but you have to contribute a little bit for this health setup of the country, for NHS. And in future, if you are not well, then you will get all these facilities free of cost. You don't have to spend even a single penny. So this is how it works. Like everyone contributes, or all those earning people, they have to contribute even a small portion. Then as well, they have to contribute, and this pool money is used for running this national health service that is free of cost. So we can have something like that in our country, though government has launched this insurance, Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, PMJAY, but we need a system, and in every profession, right? Your social surrounding molds your your profession. So if people, right, if people will pay more respect to those doctors who are not just stepping out from their Rolls Royce or other expensive cars, if people will start respecting, giving more attention to those doctors who are genuinely kind at heart, and of course they have to make money because they are there to run their families as well. So they should get enough money, but that they have to create means there should be a satisfaction level as well. That is something that is a personal choice, but people, right, society should seek or respect those doctors who are genuinely helping people and creating a positive environment. So a system founded on the concept of equity, right? Equity will cultivate a totally different culture of patient care, rather than looking at patient as a sort of business opportunity. They will look at it from this ethical and equity point of view. So that's everything about this one. Equity's weak pulse and commodified medicine. Now let's talk about Make in India. Very interesting article. Why Make in India has failed. We are going to go through some reasons. Now, the main aim of Make in India is to make or convert our country into a global manufacturing hub. For that, Government of India set up three main objectives. The first one was to increase the manufacturing sector's growth rate. To you have a double-digit growth, somewhere around 12% to 14% per year, which is very difficult to achieve, of course. The second was to create 100 million additional manufacturing jobs by 2022. And the third one, which was earlier the target was 2022, then it was revised to 2025. Basically, the share of manufacturing share or contribution in GDP is somewhere around 16% at present, to increase it or to take it to 25% by 2025. So these were three main objectives. Now the policy approach was to create a conducive environment for investment. Second thing was to develop modern and efficient infrastructure, and the third one was to open up new sectors for foreign capital. So by keeping these objectives and by creating policies that will cover this 1 to 3 points, we thought that we will get more investment and Make in India will get a boost. But gross fixed capital formation of the private sector saw a drop. If we go through this economic survey 2018-19, then we find that back in 2013-14, this gross fixed capital formation was 31.3%. It dropped to 28.6% in 2017-18. I'll give you an example, right? I'm sure you'd be aware about this thing, that a commercial aeroplane will have two engines, right? In the same way, an economy is considered like there are two engines of growth. One is government and the second one is private. Right? Government investment, capital expenditure, government creating infrastructure, roads, railways, airports, other things. Right? With the help of these things, people will, like, let's say, two cities are connected with the help of a very beautiful as well as very broad and wide highway, 6-lane or 8-lane, let's say. Then once this highway is constructed, then we will find so many hotels or restaurants, on this highway, and we'll find so many other places like petrol pumps will come up. Then you will have shopping malls. Then small towns will get opportunities to sell their products to bigger areas, city areas. City areas will find new markets in this local areas or this remote areas or rural area, because you have one big highway connecting all these different villages. So when government creates an infrastructure or invests in an infrastructure, it is expected that private players will follow. But what happened is government was spending, but private players were not that enthusiastic. And one of the reasons is sentiments, right? Sentiment plays a very important role. If private players are feeling negative, right, if they are in wait and watch mode and they stay in that mode for a long period of time, then that's a bit of problem for any economy, and that is something that we have been facing, I would say. Part of this problem can be attributed to the decline in the savings rate in the economy. What happened is, because of expenses and other things, household saving saw a decline, and this private corporate sector saving increased. So a household that used to say, let's say 5,000 rupees per month, now they are able to save only 2,500. So when their saving will drop, what will happen is they will spend less. And when they will spend less, that means even a person who is a manufacturer or a business, right, having enough money, you have enough money, you can open 3 more factories, but there is no demand of your product. People are buying it, but they are not buying in bulk. They are buying as they need it. They are going as like pay as you go. If you need something, buy it, don't stock it. So if that is the situation, even if you have saving, even if you have money, you will not open new factory. If you don't open new factory, you don't create more jobs. If you don't create more jobs, household saving again will come down. So basically, because of all these reasons, what we find is demand of products and services has dropped, and this is a big problem for the government now. Like from supply side, government did many things like chopping down corporate tax rate, but this is a supply measure. Demand, it will not generate demand. It will create more saving for corporate sector, but what about consumer demand? So this is something that government has to work on. Now policymakers neglected the third deficit in the economy, which is implementation, and this is one of the most important thing about this article. It talks about this policy casualness. Now, while economists worry mostly about budget and fiscal deficit, policy implementers need to take into account the implications of implementation deficit in their decision. So what actually it means is a big gap between theory and practical. A person who is formulating or designing theory has no idea about grassroots reality, and the person who is going to implement the theory, he or she knows very well that this particular theory, we cannot implement it. It's too big or it's too ambitious. So this is called policy casualness, and this is one of the main reasons why this Make in India has failed. It set out too ambitious growth rates. The initiative brought in too many sectors, right? So it was not focused. Energy was dispersed. And the third thing is the uncertainties of global economy and ever-rising trade protectionism. So external factor as well has played a very important role. So government has to understand that window dressing is something, for a time being you can attract someone's attention. But if you want to retain that person to come again and again to your shop, then you have to create, results. Without that, they are not going to come and invest in your economy, and this is one of the main reasons why this Make in India has failed. So I hope things are clear to you. Now let's talk about, so we have basically covered this 4 items. Now we have to go through this 2, right? This one and this one. We'll start with this one, right? This is a net verdict that falls short of expectations. It's about Supreme Court. It's about this stay or blockade of internet in Jammu and Kashmir. Now, court has said that any restrictions placed on the internet, among other things, must meet a test of proportionality. Earlier on, remember, we discussed about this particular topic, that a government is taking any decision that is going to impact freedom of speech and expression, or basically your fundamental right, then government should follow, or it should test its decision on this proportionality. That if there is no choice at all, if we don't have any other option at all, then only government can, or government should go ahead and restrict this freedoms or these fundamental rights. And it's quite interesting to find that there is a train running between Srinagar and Banihal that provides internet facilities. So it's nowadays famous as Internet Express. People of Jammu and Kashmir, they are using it for filing their GST. Students are using it for filing their applications and other things. So it's a very sad thing, of course. Now, judicial review, right? How it works, and like judicial review is, it's not just about clarifying what is what. It's also about implementing things. It involves the application of the law to the facts. If we know that now what has happened in this case is that Supreme Court has said that this sort of blockade for 5 months it's not you can say logical. I would say it's not rational. Having said that, government or Supreme Court should have implemented internet. That's what this article is arguing. Now, I would argue that the Supreme Court has said that you need to, if you are implementing this sort of thing, that every 7 days you have to review whether you need to extend this ban, may it be 144 of CRPC or shutdown of the internet. But we talked about this thing. Remember that even if you will create a sort of 7-day review, then in that review as well, you will have people or agents of government. Now, Justice N.V. Ramanna has said that the right to freedom of speech and expression contained in Article 19(1)(a) of the Constitution, the bench held implicitly also includes a mandate to a right to information. Without information, what you are going to speak and what you are going to express, how you are going to understand something without information if you don't have access to information. So right to information is also part of Article 19(1)(a). And freedom to disseminate and receive information through any means possible is also very important when it comes to right to freedom of speech and expression. This reminds us of this aphorism of Lord Diplock. He has said that you must not use a steam hammer to crack a nut if a nutcracker would do the same job. In Hindi, we say, remember that if you can do something with the help of your needle, then you don't need a sword for that, right? This is a rough translation of this quote. So the basic aim that the restriction seeks to achieve is legitimate. This is something that should be very important. Government should take greatest care and should pay attention to these things, that the basic aim of the restriction should be legitimate. The second thing is the state must demonstrate that it has chosen the least restrictive measure possible to achieve its purported objective. And the third one is the state must establish that there exists a rational nexus between the limitation imposed and purported aim. So government should be very logical, very rational, and should explain as well. And reviews also should be taken by independent team, I would say. Last one of the day for Bruce, a permanent home. Very interesting article. Like a few days ago, 4 parties, or we can say quadripartite agreement took place on 16th January. Quadripartite means you have 4 parties. One is centre, Tripura government, Mizoram government, and representatives of BRU organization. Now, BRUs basically from Mizoram, they have migrated to Tripura because of things that took place back in 1997. In this article, you can read about who are they. I'll give you a brief overview. They are also known as Ryangs. They are spread across Tripura, Mizoram, and southern Assam. In Assam and Tripura, they follow Hinduism. In Mizoram, they follow Christianity. Back in 1995, there was a clash between majority Mizos and Bruce people, and finally, one officer was killed. This triggered a sort of riot between these two communities, Bruce and Mizos, and back in 1997, there were like 40,000 Bruce. They flee towards this, or they migrated to Tripura for safety. Now, the first person who raised this demand, or you can say this thing that this Bruce in Tripura, they should be rehabilitated in Tripura, was the Tripura royal family Sion, Pradyot Pradyot Manikya. He is the man who said that they should be rehabilitated in Tripura. BJP government is fine with it, right? It's ready to rehabilitate this Bruce in Tripura. Now, few Bruce, they have moved back to Mizoram, and people who are going to stay here in Tripura, they will be given some sort of benefits, right? There is a list of benefits. So there are 2 arguments now. The first argument is that, and this is quite interesting to note, the first argument is that in future, if we find this sort of issues between 2 communities in any different part of our country, and if they are fleeing to another part, then this will create, or this will become a sort of pattern in future, that people will leave their home and they will settle in different state altogether. So that is something, not good as far as, if we look at it from their cultural and from their roots point of view. And the second thing is, there are Bruce in Mizoram who are saying that now we took all the risks and now we have moved back to Mizoram. And people who are going to stay in Tripura, or Bruce who are going to stay in Tripura, they are going to get all the benefits. What about us? We should also get the benefit. So these are the two challenges, and that's basically everything as far as articles are concerned. News items very quickly ahead of holiday. China gears up to contain virus. You have this Lunar New Year holidays. Center for Tougher Law Against Sexual Harassment at Work. Then Sheikh Hasina has said that Citizenship Amendment Act is unnecessary. Students have launched a helium balloon, a satellite using helium balloon. That's very interesting. 146 endangered Irrawaddy dolphins were sighted in Chilika Lake. Irrawaddy is a name of a river that flows through Southeast Asian nations. And more than 80 soldiers killed in Yemen attack. And that's everything in today's discussion, dear friends. Thank you very much for watching this video. Thank you very much for your love and support. I'm sure you are learning so many things with the help of this lecture. And if you want to know more about economical, business and financial world, then on regular basis I deliver one lecture on StudyIQ education platform on YouTube channel, and it's called Daily Financial News Analysis. You will find it every day around 5 p.m. in the evening. It's a lecture in both language, Hindi and English, right? It's just one lecture. The written language is English and the audio language is Hindi. So if you are interested, then do check it out as well. You'll find the lecture PDF, as I told you, on my these two platforms. So enjoy your studies. God bless you all. Jai Hind.